from Wallstrom. In this small flame dwell the beacon light of lanterns guiding travelers home, the warmth of hearth fires tended through the generations, the transforming energy of furnaces and power and life of our sun. May these blessings, warmth and light and life-giving energy be kindled in each of us. Well, it's wonderful to be together in worship this morning. All the ways we join together for worship now, we have Zoom, we have folks here in the sanctuary. It's just really, really fun to all get together. I'd like to say a special thank you to the many individuals who keep our congregation fellowship going. These folks include Candy and Paul, who prepare the building on Sunday mornings and make sure everything is swept and clean and looking as wonderful as it does. They make the coffee too. Thank you. Thank you from me for after the service. The audiovisual crew, which Don working his magic as Zoom tech, and Paul, who's overseeing the audio visuals here in the sanctuary, or that might be Pam and Dara today. I'm a new worship associate, so you have to bear with me a little bit today as I get all the nuances down. Many thanks to our worship committee members, Pam, Rachel, and Noreen, who have been hard at work arranging meaningful and worship services, and especially to Kendra, who's been scheduling all the guest speakers, and that includes me. So thank you, Kendra. On the slide that Don will put up for us is a list of the upcoming services for the month of June. So next Sunday, oh my gosh, James Ford, incredible preacher and speaker. So be sure and join us. Then on June 12th, I will be returning to the pulpit, and we hope to hold a special memorial service that day as part of the Sunday service to those who have lost their lives in the recent outbreaks of violence. We invite everyone to join us, and please bring friends who you think might want to do some sort of healing songs, chants, and readings that morning. So please join us. I do have one other announcement. I don't know if anyone else does. I had to really change up this service at the last minute. So if it seems maybe a little bit more, maybe the hymns aren't quite as tight as I usually have them, it's because we had such a devastating event this week with our young children being killed and at the school. So there are all kinds of activities going on, vigils, different things. There is a candlelight vigil on the northeast corner of Culver and Alton. And that will be tonight from 7 to 8. And I did bring one flyer, so if anybody wants to get the information after this service, I'm happy to provide that. Does anyone else have an announcement? Yes? I heard a rumor going around, and I only told 20 of my closest friends. So I'm sorry if the word got out. I have just been ridiculously happy about this. So I am really, really excited for us to start the journey together. But I am waiting for the official announcement on June 1st. So there you go. So I, Reverend Rayna Hamre, am presenting the service today as UUFLB's returning guest minister this week. Next week, I'll begin a different relationship with the congregation. And after today's service, I hope you have time to stay for a bit and connect with each other on Zoom for our cafe here in the sanctuary with me and with each other. So please hang out and we'll talk ideas. I'm using one of Robert Frost's poems today, and I did bring extra copies because once I got into this poem, we could spend days, we could have a whole conference on The Road Not Taken, but we're just going to mention it today. But I thought after the service, it might be really interesting. So I did bring extra copies of the poem for us. The centering thought today, I'm also going to be mentioning Matt Haig's book, The Midnight Library. If you're joining us from home, if you could right now, please unmute yourself. And we're going to read the words of our centering thought together. So, it is not lives we regret not living that are, okay, let's start, okay? You need the words. I have the words, you need the words. 1, 2, 3. It is not
lives we regret living
that
are the real problem. It is the regret itself.
And Carole is going to have our opening hymn now, number 6, just as long as I have breath.
Good morning, everyone. So it's page 6. You're gonna have to open up your hymnals.
So you can sing or hum.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. Though the pain I made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as visions last, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, still I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
Our call to worship this morning are the words of Reverend Lynn Cox. Come, you accidental pilgrims, you who find yourself on a journey of surprise and wonder. Come, you who emerge into this place as an act of liberation. Come, you who seek a life of mindfulness and a place to test your thoughts. Come, you who bring hearts of all kinds, heavy hearts, rusty hearts, hearts broken in revelation, hearts full of love to share. Come, you who seek courage, and you who have more courage than you realize. Come, you who stand behind the curtain, gathering up the resources to claim your truth. Come, you who have been in a bubble, you who are poised for transformation. We begin our story again, gathering courage, love, mindfulness, and a sense of purpose. We gather as people of all ages, of different abilities, different backgrounds, and different perspectives. We share a covenant, a direction for our shared journey, and a commitment to encourage and challenge one another to spiritual growth. This path will ask much from us. Let us move forward with love. Let us move forward with appreciation for one another. Let us move forward knowing we are not alone. Whoever you are, whatever your gifts, you are welcome to join this journey. And now we'll take a moment for our affirmation, our unison affirmation. So you're invited to unmute if you are on Zoom, so we can all say this together. Please join me in reading. Love is the spirit
of this fellowship, and service is its law.
This is our great covenant
to dwell
to dwell together in peace to seek the truth and love,
to love,
help.
and to
help
help
one another.
And now's the time in our service where we can briefly share the important events that have touched our lives and hearts in the past week. Before we begin this week's Joys and Sorrows, I'd like to take a moment of silent remembrance for those who have lost their lives this past month. We have all been through just a horrendous month in terms of violence, and we as a community are grieving, and we as a nation are grieving. Please join me now for a moment of silence. Amen and blessed be. During our time of sharing joys and concerns, we will pause the recording of the service. Okay, and next up is our video. Our fellowship depends on the love and the generous contributions from our members. We are empowered by the innumerable gifts of those who join in covenant with us. With time, compassion, humor, and financial contribution, all of our gifts, generously given, are needed for this fellowship and for its continued good work in the world. And you can see on the screen that there are other ways to give, both electronically and in person. And now please join us in singing to each other words of sincere gratitude.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
And I offer these words of reflection from Starhawk. We are all longing for a place to go home, to some place we've never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned. We can only catch glimpses of it from time to time. Community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words to catch in our throats. Somewhere a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free. Thank you, Carole. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry, I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. The opening words of Robert Frost's poem have drawn generations of readers into reflection on the dark mirror, the twin roads of opportunity and past regrets. Most of us have had those moments in our lives when we seriously consider and regret those offered roads in our lives that we did not take. Few of us are as eloquent as Robert Frost or as perceptive as Matt Hagen in his book, The Midnight Library, or as engagingly naive as the character Erica in the internet series Being Erica. I'll touch on each of these creative works today. Frost calls us to examine the roads and our inner motivations. This poem, as I discovered, requires a lot of the reader. All three works ask to look at how we decide between those momentous as well as the smaller forks in the road. How do we pick with any certainty, not an impossibly perfect or a correct road, but the very best road that we can? Every day we face some kind of crossroad in our lives. Yesterday, I realized as I was pouring out my coffee and feeling overwhelmed by sadness as I read this newspaper, the larger question in these works, what was it? And after thinking about it, I thought, do our actions matter? Do our attitudes and actions or indecisions, those actions of one person, really make a difference in the big picture of life? The recent news made me wonder, but these wonderful creative works can help us in our exploration. So if you could raise your hands, how many of us have wished that we could go back in time and have a do-over for some part of our lives, a road not taken, including those big mistakes? Well, congratulations to those of you who did not raise your hand. I know I've gone back and looked at many of the youthful and really awful mistakes in my past and tried to imagine how my life would have turned out today if I'd acted more sensibly. Yeah. The regretful do-overs that come to mind are many, but there is one I find to be very engaging. And it is a family regret and really more of a possibility. I joined my first UU congregation as a young mother in my 30s. But what if, those magical words, what if my parents had found Unitarian Universalism when I was a child? Mike and I were talking about this earlier. The face we were raised in. There was a congregation near us. It would have made a tremendous difference in my life. My mom could have pursued social justice actions with like-minded people. My dad would have enjoyed an intellectual atmosphere, had his wine, perhaps relaxed a little more into his family life. We kids wouldn't have grown up in a religious battleground that unfortunately made Sunday one of the worst days of the week at our house. Coulda, shoulda, woulda. Reflections is what I call these flights of fantasy. I also had a real memory of previously exploring this realm of possibility. When I was that new UU mom raising very young children, I asked my friends, including my amazing older UU friends that I had just met, what they as parents would have done differently if they could go back in time. I had no idea I'd be talking about this exact topic years later as a UU minister, but we don't want to go down too many mind-bending Lewis Carroll rabbit holes just yet. One of those UU friends whose kids had just reached young adulthood said, I would have spent more time just hanging out with them and enjoying them. I wouldn't have worried about scheduling every minute of their day with activities. I took her words to heart. I have not regretted 1 minute I spent with my kids in the following years of just enjoying them, just being together. And then I thought, well, maybe that when they were both student drivers at the same time, that I might have a few regrets there. But that, other than that, no, none at all. One great thing about being older is that I can admit to my own bad choices and understand how they arose, bringing to mind the Buddhist concept of dependent origination. The principle that all things, including all teachings, actions, phenomena, and principles, arise in interdependence with all of those same things that came before it and are happening right now. As part of this reflection process, I've also learned to take responsibility for my own bad behavior. Managing my own regrets has become a careful balancing act over the years, one of accepting my own character and limitations, a deeper understanding of psychology and family system dynamics, all of this facilitated by some really good therapists. Making the effort to remember my own compassionate actions also helps. For those of us who work with a therapist, this can involve revisiting our life choices, understanding those sometimes painful experiences, and doing the hard work that facilitates change. All of this is much easier to avoid, but what a difference this process has made in my life. Now, Robert Frost poses some tricky questions in his poem about roads not taken. Mountains of literary criticism and commentary have been written about this particular poem. With their ambivalence and ambiguity, I'm finding that a Frost poem can work as a Rorschach test, those ink blots that our mind invites to shape with our own imagination and experience. Professor and poet David Orr, who also reviews poetry for the New York Times, tells us that we all got this particular Robert Frost poem completely wrong in his book with the great title, The Road Not Taken, Finding America in the Poem Everyone Loves and Almost Everyone Gets Wrong. It's a long title. Dr. Orr believes that The Road Not Taken is not about regret and possibilities and a celebration of being a lonely trailblazer. He draws our attention to the middle of the poem, the stanza that says, when choosing between the two paths, the speaker tells us that the choice really doesn't matter. The two roads have been taken before and are much the same. At the critical moment, the narrator tells us that they then took the other as just as fair, and that's the pathway, the road, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And to get to the end stanza, it's easy to kind of jump over these middle stanzas, but that stanza is there. Professor Orr calls our attention to the words of this inner stanza, the lines shimmering with ambiguity, all ready for us readers to untangle. The words about the same tells us that both the roads have been traveled equally. In the middle of the poem, these words imply that there is no rugged individualism here in this choice. Dr. Orr provides fascinating history and background on this poem, which he believes is the best known poem in the world. He also explores the many interpretations, literary, historical, and mythological, that emerge from a close reading of The Road Not Taken. And I brought, again, extra copies of the poem, so probably, I keep reading the poem over and over and finding different meanings, and it shifts. Choices and regrets, along with time travel therapy, are all part of the online series called Being Erica. This 30-something main character is facing her own life regrets, and then through the plot device gets to choose at which points in her life she will time travel back to and make the better choice. Erica echoes Sheryl Crow's lyrics. And thank you, Rachel, for suggesting the song. The words, it just fit in beautifully. And the words, I'm just wondering why I feel so all alone, why I'm a stranger in my own life, can describe Erica. Ironically, each time Erica chooses and re-enters a different life, it re-enters her life, it's her same life, but at different junctures, the outcome is very much the same. Very little of anything she tries changes the larger chain of events. For instance, and this is a spoiler alert, when she returns back in time and challenges her insensitive brother-in-law, she finds out that he is in love with her, not her sister. This is at the root of his horrible and frustrating behavior toward Erica. This understanding doesn't change the situation. What changes throughout the series, however, is Erica herself. Every time she returns to one of those points where she made a bad choice, she begins to see that everyone has a backstory, and she becomes a more loving, flexible, and forgiving person. She is able to piece together and recognize the larger picture that includes so many circumstances and nuances that exist outside of her small world. Matt Haig's popular book, The Midnight Library, features Nora, also a 30-something female protagonist. And she too is struggling through that decade after youth when many of us examine our lives. This story, I hit a wall at 35. That was my, oh my gosh, where am I? What am I doing? This story can be much more challenging for the reader since Nora is considering suicide at the beginning of the book. I don't want to trigger anyone who might read this book or who is present today. So please look at the order of service to see resources in case someone you know is struggling with suicidal thoughts. This is a serious issue. And with the violence we are experiencing this month as a nation and beyond, we know that depression can be a very serious health issue. There are many reliable resources available, including information from the National Alliance on Mental Health and the Trevor Project. Nora's disillusionment with her life takes us to a very serious turning point, and for her, she has completely given up. And at the last moment, she's given this opportunity to return to her own moments of serious regret. The stakes for her are very high in this story. A mysterious offer allows Nora to find the life that best fits her out of a multiverse of possibility. The concept of the multiverse has become very popular in literature and sci-fi and film recently. The idea that every conceivable it's tied to quantum physics. The idea that every conceivable possibility of forward-moving activity that we generate is happening all at the same time. So in the multiverse, we are living many exponential number of different versions of our life. And they're all happening at the same time. According to Wikipedia, together, these universes comprise everything that exists. The entirety of space, time, matter, energy, information, and the physical laws and constants that describe them. Once we can wrap our heads around that every possibility that could have happened is happening right now, the idea of jumping into one of those other possible realities helps us get into the Midnight Library story. Like the traveler on the road not taken and in Erica being Erica, Nora finds that jumping into another possibility for her life that the multiverse offers changes some things, but not others. Matt Haig artfully leads us to Nora's conclusion. With each choice offered for jumping into another life, she begins to choose more wisely as she travels through her multiple, not chosen until that moment, road options. Several of her lives seem great, but we understand completely as she also rejects these multiverse versions that would change her current reality. Nora also has become wiser with her time travels as she tries on and tries out different versions of herself. She's a swimmer, a rock star, a married and settled person. Those are just a few of her experiences. Nora and Erica are fictional characters. When we arrive at those large crossroads and the smaller ones that we all face and are usually forced into a decision, And we know that not choosing is also a decision. How do we decide? We can also return to our original question. Does it really matter what one individual chooses over the course of their lifetime? Do we make that much difference? So I find that we are now standing at the terrifying ancient crossroad of possibility in our society. We can't see the end of the offered roads. It's possible we don't truly have a choice of the 2, the 4, or hundreds of roads presented, or as Robert Frost hides coyly in his words, that we might have a true choice. There's a chance that our seemingly momentous decisions will not matter, and they are simply manifestations of our own self-importance. It's one of the jobs of poets and artists to call us into painful reflection. However, as Unitarian Universalists, no matter our occupational calling, we are asked to act in the world to the best of our ability with deeds, not creeds. We are blessed to have strong ethical guidelines that we can look to guide us, and we're blessed to have our covenants that keep us in right relations. These tools still require, and in fact, they demand that we use our own judgment and deep discernment. I found that our choices do make a difference. Absolutely, as individuals and sometimes as a society. Robert Frost's friend, whose constant indecision inspired the poem, The Road Not Taken, decided to step out of his indecision after corresponding with Frost about the then new poem and join the army. 2 years later, he was killed while serving. This shows that in the context of our own lives, and often beyond, many of our choices do have meaning and consequence. Sadly, the individuals who have taken lives in the past months made a terrible difference. But I'm also sure that each of us can think of one person who has made a difference in our life with their kindness and compassion, also a decision. As a country, we face now some immediate choices. We're moving down roads that are unhealthy and self-destructive. What healthy roads can we select when our country is exhibiting behaviors that lead us down roads of senseless destruction on vehicles built on racism and misogyny and fueled by an active disdain for attention to mental health issues, the roots of poverty, and sensible gun laws? We have some choices right now. We UUs can vote, and I know all of you do that, but we can take it one step further. If you're looking for involvement, explore UU the Vote. UU the Vote is working to protect our voting rights and provides volunteer opportunities for people of all abilities and time availability. As a UU, you can make a difference in our voting rights and protections as a volunteer. We can offer our time and resources and invest in reputable groups that are working to contain gun violence. We can get involved at the legislative level and join campaigns to hold our elected representatives accountable for wider access to mental health, resources, and for legislation to curb violence. The Violence Policy Center tells us that in 2020, firearms were involved in over 45,000 deaths in the US. Now is the time to work together to change this appalling number. When I envisioned today's service, I did not intend to go down the road of activism, but I was faced with a choice. As I stood at that sometimes unnerving crossroad of sermon reflection and preparation and writing, I knew I could not conduct business as usual without acknowledging our social responsibility in the face of so many tragedies. As a UU, I believe we are actively, and in this tougher thing, this is the tougher thing, continually answering the call of the Spirit of life to choose the road of action toward the greater good. We have a long and wonderful history of people, of UUs and so many others who have given their personal and professional lives over to work on reforms and progressive causes. And you are all amazing people here, all of you. And we, as this generation of UUs, are now called to be involved even more deeply in the greater issues of our day. I have faith that when each of us stands at a crossroads, those liminal between the certainties choices, choosing difficult roads in the days ahead, you will remember that you have us your siblings you use as your companions. And while we might not agree on everything, I know we're going to agree on most things. If you're new here and hurting today with sorrows that you're not ready to share, know that this is a community that will support and hold you. Thank you, friends, for inviting me to share your congregation on the road, traveling on our larger UU shared journey in our exciting days ahead together. Amen, shalom, salam, namaste, and blessed be. Our closing hymn this morning is number 1074, Turn the World Around, in the teal hymnal. If you're joining by Zoom, the words will be in the chat, and we can also join Carole by humming and singing the words to this favorite hymn.
Please join me. We come from the wire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. Ooh, so is life. Ah, so is life. Ooh, so is life. Ah, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Ooh, so is life unbeatable. So is life. Ooh, so is life unbeatable. So is life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain, fire make the sunlight, turn the world around. Heart is of the river, body is the mountain, spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, truly of the spirit, only can the spirit turn the world around. So is life a been a while. So is life. Ooh, so is life a been a while. So is life. Ooh, so is life a been a while. So is life. Ooh, so is life a been a while. So is life.
Extinguish our chalice here in this UUFLB sanctuary and at home. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Our closing words are from Becca Reynolds. May love permeate your every heartbeat. May faith guide your every step. May truth and compassion be your eternal traveling companions. And may a deep abiding spirit rest joyously in your every waking wish and your every resting dream. I add, let us go in peace and in love, knowing we are held by the spirit of life and the eternal mystery and our UUFLB community. Now, please stand as you're comfortable for our closing song. Let there be peace on earth, and we'll gather in a circle.
Let there be peace on earth. Let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With earth as our mother, we are family. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solid vow. To take each moment and live each moment